forum public dialogue on what's in store for downtown Orleans. My name is Cricket Keener, and I'm the new Vice President for the OCF. In case you don't know, we are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that coordinates forums on topics of interest to our community. We've been around since 1998, and we depend on our membership for financial as well as voluntary support. If you're already a member, thank you. And if you're not, please consider joining tonight. Remittance envelopes are in the front. Go out and they're available at the front desk. The dues are a bargain at $10 per person, but of course we always appreciate any extra donations. Along with these informative forums we provide to the general public, as a member you will also receive several newsletters a year, email updates of upcoming events, and invitations to members-only events. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Chet Crabtree. Chet is a member of the Town Planning Board. He has also served as liaison between the Planning Board and the Village Study Group, so comes to us uniquely qualified to moderate this discussion. Chet and his wife Jan have been residents of Orleans for 20 years and full-time residents for 10 years. Chet?
Thank you, Cricket. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I think this is a strong demonstration of the level of interest in improving our town and the future of Orleans. The purpose of tonight's forum is to give a progress report on the Village Center initiative and invite your comments and support. When we speak of the Village Center, we're referring to a very defined area within the town. I'll speak up a little so you can hear me. This is the intersection of Main Street and Route 6A. You might see the bike trail parallel to Route 6A. So when we speak of the Village Center, can everyone see this pretty well? You might recognize way up here, this is Snow's Home and Garden Center across the street from Mid-Cape Lumber. Coming down to the intersection here, we've got CVS. We've got Staples Center down here. Coming down Main Street, all the way down to Friends, Snow's Library, Post Office Square, and then coming out 6A, we come all the way out here to this point with the Lost Dog Pub, and of course, Christmas tree. Just gives you a feel for this specific area is the Village Center. And if we had to say there's an area of concentration, it would be this intersection and particularly Main Street. Next, I want to summarize the role of the Orleans Planning Board in this initiative. The board's responsibility, among other things, is to plan the improvement of all business areas in Orleans. This is not exclusive to the Village Center, but also includes areas such as the Shaw's Plaza, which is not on here, the Stop and Shop Plaza, which is not on this map, East Orleans, of course, which is not on this map. The Planning Board feels that by making Orleans a more attractive place to shop and do business, it benefits not only the local merchants, but also the town residents. And for that reason, it's an integral part of the Orleans Comprehensive Plan. However, we focus initially on the Village Center in hopes that any improvements there would catch on and become adopted in other parts of the town. So we have a very small beta site by which to try for these improvements and see that if it resonates with others. This initiative began this time last year when the Planning Board hired a marketing consultant to study the Village Center and advise us on how to make it even more attractive. I think most of the people in this room feel that Orleans is an attractive town to begin with. We've chosen this as our home out of all the places we could choose to live in this earth, this very special place. And so by having this initiative, we're not implying that there's something inherently wrong with the town of Orleans. It's just an opportunity to improve it going forward. The town will change whether we plan for it or not. Change is inevitable. This is our opportunity to have some influence on the future of our town. The study, the marketing consultant study, involves 3 surveys. There were surveys of the merchants in town, surveys of the residents, and surveys of visitors. Then the consultant report, which was we were so pleased with that report. Everyone on the committees that was involved was very happy with the report. And she recommended 54 specific action steps that could be taken to enhance the village center. This report is available online on the town's website under the planning board. And we felt the best way to deal with so many recommendations was to break them down into 6 categories. And I saw Sid here. I have to thank Sid Snow for that concept. We broke them down into 6 categories, and then the Chamber of Commerce volunteered to form 6 committees around these 6 topics. And the committees would not only have business people, but also we invited interested citizens, and they do have interested citizens on those committees. Each committee was then asked to brainstorm, discuss, and most importantly, prioritize 3 or 4 key action items that they deemed the most important in their respective categories. Here are the 6 committees. Aesthetics, which would involve such things as lighting and signs, the sidewalks, etc. Marketing, which had to do with how we market online as well as information kiosks. A number of things fall into these. Are just examples. Business development, as you can imagine, has to do with what businesses would we like to attract here that are missing now. Infrastructure, of course, the roads, the sidewalks, pathways, and long-range vision, which just envelops a lot of things, including shade trees and the Buy Local campaign, and I'll let the speakers address these. And then finally, public safety, of course, which has to do with not only the highways here, but the pedestrian ways and bikeways. They all come under public safety. So we have these 6 categories, and we have 6 committees. The leaders of each of these 6 committees are on the panel tonight. They will give a brief report of their committee's progress. And this is important. Rather than interrupting them during their presentation with questions or comments, we ask that you see that you have cards and pencils. We ask that you write those down, and we do have volunteers who will be in the aisles to collect those. And at the end of the 6 presentations, we have our collators who will bring the questions together, and we will ask the panelists to then comment, to answer the questions, and some of them will be comments, which is wonderful. We're looking for fresh ideas. We're still in the brainstorming stage of this project. Now, I've anticipated one of your questions. I would imagine that many of you would like to know, what is the next step? So I would like to answer that question right now, and we can address it later as well. This phase, which I call the brainstorming and prioritization phase, will wrap up around Memorial Day. The next phase, we will form some new groups and look for volunteers to help us with what I call the implementation stage. And we will focus especially on high priority projects which can be completed in the short run. You might ask, well, how are we going to complete these projects? We are optimistic that the sponsorship of any one project might come from a grant, might come from nonprofit organizations, might come from private contributions, may involve volunteer hours, and could involve town resources. Most likely, it will involve combinations of all those sources. For example, the town applied for and received a grant from the Cape Cod Commission for 600 hours of professional streetscape design work. And we're lucky to have the lead architect here tonight. Tabitha, you want to raise your hand? Tabitha Harkin, who has been meeting with some of these committees already. We are optimistic that sometime by fall we will actually have a professional grade streetscape plan that has had the input of so many people that are on the committees and others, so that it will reflect the desires of the citizens of Orleans. We're really looking forward to that. That grant is a huge step forward for all of us. In conclusion, wrapping up, perhaps the most important message that I can deliver tonight is that the Village Center Initiative is a combined effort of interested and enthusiastic residents, business people, and town hall representatives. And we hope you will support this initiative. Our first speaker tonight is Ken Tabor. He is chair of the Long Range Vision Committee. Ken is one of the owners of the Hole in One Group, responsible for its financial, marketing, and operational needs, both in Orleans and East End. And Ken has been living on the Cape for 16 years. Ken?
Thank you, Chet. I want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming tonight. Long Range Vision took its approach to the given action items that our group wanted to address. We took that with the November 12, 2009 vision statement, which was prepared by the Planning Board. So please allow me to read an insert of that statement. The Orleans Village Center is one and will continue to be a vibrant commercial and community center for the town and will develop into a focal point for the community and cultural activities and services for residents and visitors. The small town character in the village will be maintained and enhanced. Mixed use and other appropriate development will be encouraged through changes in the zoning bylaws. Street trees and decorative landscaping will be encouraged. Improved sidewalks, lighting, street furniture, and the placement of utility lines underground will be pursued. Tonight you will be able to hear how the groups have addressed these improvements. But right now I'd like to state what the Long Range Vision Committee has elected as its #1 priority. We're proposing this because it is most important, because without this priority, none of these ideas and thoughts will sustain and continue into the future. We strongly recommend that a private-public partnership comprised of resident representatives from businesses, not-for-profit organizations, and other Orleans associations, and our own Orleans residents be linked to town government to carry forward the powerful ideas from the other working groups which you will hear tonight. This entity should be established with objectives of implementing and stewarding the visions of a dynamic Orleans. I'd like you to take a moment and visualize the wonderful assets this town already has. The beautiful beaches and waterways, the bike trail networks, Orleans Firebirds, East Orleans and Nauset Beach, Rock Harbor with the fishing charter boats, South Orleans and the envisioned Putnam Farm, Orleans Arboretum, and other interesting historical sites. With that vision, I want you to also think of a traditional college campus setting. A centerpiece surrounded by individual nodes, connected by sidewalks, roadways lined with flowering trees, vibrant vegetation, shrubs, and other plantings, providing creative artwork and architectural features throughout the town or the campus. Expanding that theme to open parking lots and linking those parking lots together by one or more interesting nodes or modes of transportation such as trolley or pedicabs. This centerpiece that I'm talking about is also known as a magnet use, something that would cause visitors to visit with a purpose. The Long Range Vision Working Committee is of the opinion that a center of visual performing arts would be the most highly effective magnet for attracting year-round multi-generational traffic to the village center, from local citizenry to visitors from across the Lower Cape and Off-Cape tourists. The envisioned facility could serve as a venue for performances, concerts, exhibits, lectures, movies, and civic events ranging from community cabaret to square dances. As part of the Cape Cod Community Commission grant, a network of covered serpentine brick walkways and street lighting could be laid out to link all corners of the Orleans Center into a cultural campus. that would benefit existing businesses and spawn new boutiques, shops, eateries. The Center of Visual and Performing Arts could be operated in conjunction with town arts and cultural organizations, including the Snows Library, the Historical Society, the Academy of Performing Arts, an envisioned Orleans cinema, art galleries, museums. In addition, the envisioned facility could provide space and inspiration for wellness options, lifelong learning, music, dance, theater, and linkages to distinctly Orleans outdoor activities, including natural trails, environmental and aquatic programs, and the envisioned Orleans Arboretum. This vision, which I have tried to draw for you, would be the responsibility of a collaborative effort of the members of the planning board and this entity, which tentatively we could call Orleans Action Committee. They would work together, and the Orleans Action Committee would be open to any interested parties. Maybe a few of you here tonight would be involved and to take on and sustain the ideas that is being presented tonight. I would like to leave you with one thought tonight. Vision is great because it provides you with a general strategy for handling tomorrow. Beyond tomorrow, though, you need to be able to handle the future. Tomorrow belongs to those organizations that have a vision of what is coming ahead. The future belongs to those organizations that can shape what is coming. We see what's ahead through vision, but we shape what's coming through long-range perspective. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. Making a presentation of the Aesthetics Committee is Jim Junkins. Jim is the owner and operator of Friends Marketplace and Garden Center here in town for the last 13 years. And prior to that, Jim had 40 years in the retail, grocery, flower business, including 20 years with Star Market. Jim was a resident of Sandwich for the last 18 years. He's involved in business and daily life here in Orleans as well. Jim?
Thank you, Chet, and thank you everybody for coming. It looks like a great turnout. What does aesthetics involve? Aesthetic involves the impression, a feeling, and finally the total appearance of what you're going after to make something better, beautiful. In our committee, we also had representation from the Architecture Review and also the Orleans Improvement Association. Gave us great input into our discussions of talking about the aesthetics of the town of Orleans. The Aesthetics Committee sees its role as offering guidance and supplying information to town officials and other village center committees. Our mission is to recommend an all-inclusive design theme that would be applied throughout the village center in a consistent manner. This theme will stress that downtown Orleans is a village opposed to a suburb or a regional commercial hub. Is steeped in maritime history, boasts traditional New England architecture worthy of preserving, would like to be more pedestrian and biker friendly, and wants to be attractive, festive, and remain very interesting. Our committee has focused on 4 action items and prioritized these action items according to which would have the greatest impact on the town's attractiveness. Number 1, create attractive sidewalks, street furniture, and streetscape improvements To avoid duplication of this action item, the Aesthetics Committee will provide design guidance to the Cape Cod Commission, who, as you heard, has offered their technical assistance, and also to the Infrastructure Committee, who have the primary responsibility for designing a streetscape plan. Number 2, encourage where needed new storefront and municipal signage that attracts and promotes walking and browsing. The committee will present its preference for several traditional street lighting options, as well as guidelines to signage, both municipal and merchant signs. Additionally, we will plan to develop standards for public benches, sidewalk trash containers, and recommend the use of planters around the village for seasonal use. Number 3, create a strong sense of place through gateways, intersection streetscape, and kiosks. The committee will provide guidance to the Public Safety and Infrastructure Committee, who are planning to improve these key intersections. We will also make recommendations about the location and appearance of gateways and additional information kiosks. Number 4, increase transparency of shops and window displays to create a livelier atmosphere. This is an opportunity that involves everyone's cooperation. Orleans must move forward towards a design image which brings all aspects of the plan together. What can be done to enhance a building's charm or help a business be more attractive using some creative thinking and improved outside decor design? We believe existing town bylaws adequately address store window appearance. However, there may be a need to change the way these bylaws will be enforced moving forward. What's our next step? Many of these design changes can be implemented in the near term. Others may occur on a scheduled basis over time in conjunction with other committees' plans. Either way, just think how attractive and desirable the village center will become with these updated aesthetic changes. There is a tremendous amount of valuable information and resources available on this subject. The appeal of Orleans lies in its character, history, and townscape, and the Orleans businesses to put their ideas together and continue the process that will create excitement and improve the appearance, visibility, and commerce in Orleans for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next, we will hear from the chair of the Business Development Committee, Todd Thayer. Todd is a partner in the Bowman Thayer Real Estate. He's also an authentic Cape Cod native. He was born and raised here. He's very modest. That's a brief resume. Todd?
Thank you, Chet. Todd Thayer, the Business Development Committee. I want to thank my team. You guys all have their names out there somewhere in a card. They worked very hard. We had some great dialogue. We had 11 action items to consider, and we wrestled with a lot of different factors along the way. We wrestled with the impact of franchises in the town of Orleans, the creation of business nodes, demographics, who's our audience? Is it vacation homeowners, second homeowners, year-rounders? Orleans has some walking issues, and I heard somebody say it's quite a sprawl. We have to deal with that. We lack a central parking area. We talked about the importance of curb appeal. We talked about the filling in of business gaps, long spread out areas, maybe trying to infill with real estate. And we also talked about filling business gaps, items that were sold out of the town of Orleans that local merchants or vendors could bring in and sell locally. We also talked about business development versus redevelopment in the town. Overall, we thought two things that were always good for business development in the town of Orleans is one, anything that had to do with the environment, take advantage of nature and our natural location on the map. And second, anything that had to do with a buy local campaign. We came up with 3 major conclusions out of our 11. We wanted an enhanced increase and explore the potential for attractions in the town. We wanted to create a business development subcommittee within the town. And we wanted to create customer service like no other for the town of Orleans. For exploring potential of attractions and enhancement of events, we saw that an attraction or event in the town of Orleans was actually an asset in the town that could be enhanced in the right way, obviously bringing people in, getting them comfortable. We have daily attractions, Sunrise, Nauset Beach, Sunset, Rock Harbor. We have other special attractions that we need to take advantage of. Firebirds, 4th of July, Pops in the Park, farmers markets. One action item that came out of this exploring for the attractions and assets is we thought that we needed a clearinghouse. This clearinghouse could be really a new or an existing group in town. It was a single reference source or a list. It would represent communication upgrade, and you could have cross-pollination of business. Envision Dick Helmer has a world-famous kayak weekend in the town of Orleans. Shouldn't the OPC be involved? Should the restaurants all know about it to take advantage of it? Shouldn't we be able to tell people where to park and how to launch their boats, where to launch their boats? The second solution was the creation of a business development subcommittee. We saw this as a mix between business leaders, town representative, and residents. Very much kind of like the Orleans Economic Development Council of years past. We also thought that this was a clearinghouse of sorts where it could incubate businesses, bridging leadership, where people could come to this meeting, be able to throw ideas around, look at what would affect zoning, how the people would think about it. Use an example of a restaurant wanted to add additional seating, outside cafe style. There might be some issues they have to overcome. They come to this group. What do the business group think about it? What about town hall? How do we get permits? And then the residents, will they support it, type of stuff. So an action item out of this subcommittee group really is an education for the residents of the town of Orleans. We really need to, I think, educate the people on why a good, vibrant business community in downtown is good for the people. We need businesses in Orleans need your support. We want to get people here. We want to make them comfortable. We want to get them organized better. We want them to spend their time. We want them to spend their money. We want to increase revenues. Increase taxes, obviously. So if we ask, why is a central parking area with good bathrooms and a well-defined kiosk important, we can educate the people on why that is important. The third solution was customer service, which we felt so important about. We wanted to change it to actually customer experience. We wanted to enhance the Orleans experience when people came here. We could do that through the business group by having a customer tip sheet or training for businesses. We wanted to have easy parking with good signage, good sidewalks, beautiful facades, crosswalks at work, moving people around. Again, making them comfortable. It's a good experience in the town of Orleans. We have a lot to offer here. This responsibility actually isn't just for the business people. This is for every resident of the town of Orleans has a responsibility, I think, to make people feel comfortable and welcome here. They'll just tell, 3, 4, 5 people what a great time they had in Orleans. One nugget that came out of this thought was an Orleans Ambassador program, which may be somebody, maybe it's an elderly, maybe it's a retired group. You can do the meet and greet, think Mark Norrisville at the 4th of July, Uncle Sam. You can do the meet and greet, you can be in town, you can be at the beach, you can be Rock Harbor. You're telling people, welcome, we're glad you're here. Hey, sunsets at 7:15 at Rock Harbor, there's a reggae band, there's a Firebirds game tomorrow night, here's our restaurant list. That's my report. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Todd. The fourth committee we'll hear from is Public Safety, and the chair is Andrea Shaw Reed. Andrea works for the New York Hair Company and Spa.
She developed the Orleans Medical Center, which you know on Main Street in East Orleans. Andrea's been a resident here for 13 years, and prior to that, she had a community development experience for arts and education and recreation in the city of Cleveland and the town of Shaker Heights, Ohio. Thank you.
Good evening. Our public safety work group, and I want to thank my members of it again, did a tremendous job. We took one action item and birthed 15 more from it. I'm not going to walk you through all of them tonight, just the prime movers. The first thing we did was define public safety by moving people of all capacities safely through town at all times of day and all times of year. Public safety, well executed, integrates thoughtful and pleasing design, as we've seen it on many college campuses. So our number one concern is that a comprehensive plan, including purposeful and thematic design, to articulate sidewalks, crosswalks, pedestrian pathways, and bike lanes, enhanced by inviting gateways, signage, and dark sky compliant lighting, be executed. To make our plan complete, we need the input of our police department for their guidance in our review of key issues. We concentrated on the efficiency and consistency of the details. For instance, crosswalks should not only be painted uniformly, but have embedded street-level markers and high-level cues that can be seen over cars and trucks. There are impressive and effective designs used with great success by other towns. These high-level crosswalk cues can also host flower baskets, be part of a lighting post, host seasonal banners or displays. Sidewalks should be completed and repaired, building visually on the theme of the red brick sidewalks on Main Street that were donated by the Orleans Improvement Association. A pathway should be completed and connected thematically between Main Street and Cove Road. The use of pathway lighting and pedestrian bollards for safety throughout the village presents a great design opportunity. Bike lanes would help relieve traffic congestion and invite us to actively explore the downtown area. Dark sky compliant lighting and nightscaping would make us more visible at all times of year and create a safe, welcoming feeling at night outside. We must include our police force to improve key areas around town. Their input is needed on enforcement and enhancement of public safety tools. Can speed limits be lowered or enforced differently in these areas? An example is on Route 28 near Cove Road and on Route 6A between Nauset Marine and the Thai restaurant. There are other unsafe intersections that present challenging traffic situations, like the left turn issues, especially that back up to the bike path at 6A in Main. Could speed limits be posted around critical sidewalk areas, like at all the gateways around town? What about an Orleans policeman walking the village beat to enhance pedestrian safety and support our bike patrols, especially during the summer season? We feel that relocating the Chamber's information booth and rethinking the public restroom situation could lead to a truly welcoming experience in the center of the village, where visitors could park and explore with a friendly and attractive first impression. Foremost, a comprehensive, well-designed public safety initiative to address lighting, completed sidewalks, crosswalks, bike lanes, and signage for those of us on foot and in motion in our village is going to be a tremendous asset to community life in Orleans. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Our fifth and next to last presentation tonight concerning infrastructure. The chairman is David Little. David is a registered professional land surveyor. He's a partner of the Ryder and Wilcox firm. He has served on the Town Hall Building Committee, and David has been a resident here for the past 33 years. David.
Thank you, Chuck. Good evening. We had a pretty exciting charge being the infrastructure committee, but I must say we did have a nice cross-section of individuals on it, and I enjoyed everybody's input. We had 12 action items that we dealt with over 4 or 5 meetings, and I'm hoping to address 9 of them with you this evening. Number 1 on our list is the Wi-Fi initiative called Unwired Village. Orleans did have full Wi-Fi coverage in the village center, but since it has been discontinued, we now only have coverage in a few locations in town. People expect to have Wi-Fi connectivity in town center. In the short term, we feel the Chamber of Commerce needs to contact businesses in the village center to individually establish Wi-Fi hotspots before this summer. The Chamber can then publish this for visitor use. We should try and coordinate the Wi-Fi connections along Main Street to try and provide as much contiguous coverage as possible. And in the long term, I think it's important for the Chamber to pursue the complete Wi-Fi coverage in the town. Our second action item was to install bike racks throughout the village center. From the marketing study of the village center, there were positive comments and recommendations, with 70% of the respondents stating that they would like to see improvements to make the village center bike-friendly by encouraging biking and walking, and specifically requesting that we install bike racks throughout the Orleans Village Center. As part of the Village Center streetscape study, we will determine the types and number of bike racks needed to attract and encourage bicyclists to visit the Village Center, secure their bikes, and visit our businesses. $5,000 has been requested as part of the Cape Cod Rail Trail grant to improve bikeability on Cape Cod. Our third action item is to establish a connection through Main Street to Cove Road. Many survey respondents highly recommended that we establish a connection between these 2 streets. The Infrastructure Committee felt this was a very important item and placed it as number 3. It is recommended that we utilize the existing passage between the Parish Park and the new Main Street Wine and Gourmet, and then cross to the east side of the town-owned parking lot behind there, which would bring you across the street from the Left Bank Gallery on Cove Road. The town parking lot behind there is presently wide enough so that we could create a pedestrian walkway, restripe the parking lot, and still end up with the appropriate dimensions that are required in the town zoning bylaw to accommodate this. I think it's an important item, and it's something that we should definitely look to in the future, and we're hoping that the new streetscape study will help address the logistics of this connection. Number 4, address directional signage to attract visitors looking for information, food, shopping, etc. in the village center. Kiosks need to be updated, maintained regularly, and new kiosks need to be installed and positioned to provide visitors with information and directions. Directional signage is needed to attract visitors and highlight such locations as shopping, museums, library, and restaurants. The present Depot Square kiosk needs to be updated with an Orleans Village Center map and with directional information. There is also a need to have an informational kiosk north of Main Street at the bike trail, where people traveling from the north into town, from the east-hand side, we felt it was important to have a second kiosk there, because when bikers and walkers are coming into town, they get to Main Street, they have to go across the street to get to the kiosk, and then perhaps decide where to go. Having a second kiosk on the other side of Main Street, where the town installed a bench and installed some trees lately, we feel would be another important location to place one. We strongly endorsed or are endorsing the purchase or lease of land for village center parking. Although previous studies have indicated that there were sufficient parking spaces in town, our subcommittee felt that there is insufficient parking in the Main Street area and the 6A area. Respondents to the Village Center study highly endorsed this recommendation. And two ways that we can deal with this are the purchase or long-term lease of the Bessie property, which is located behind the Gotland Horse and Ragtime. And secondly, the purchase or long-time lease of the Sovereign Bank property on the corner of Main Street and Brewster Crossroads. Who knows what's going to happen with either one of these properties? I just think it would be a smart thing for the town fathers to keep open should the opportunity for either one of these properties, should they go on the market or we have the opportunity to lease them, there's a significant amount of parking that could be accommodated by taking advantage of that. Our sixth action item was design guidelines and standards that address plazas, parking lots, intersections, and traffic flow. Directional signage needs to be addressed to provide recognizable signs for public parking, public buildings, parks, and beaches. The Cape Cod Commission can be a help with this design by providing signs with standardized colors and placement. We think it's important to redesign and install new crosswalk signals with visible number countdown at the 6A and Main Street intersection for more efficient vehicle and pedestrian utilization. The current makeup of the present countdown doesn't work. It tells you to walk and then in 2 seconds you see the red hand up there. And we can, just by changing that and having a countdown or something that would make people feel a little bit more encouraged that they might make it to the other side of the street. We think it's important to install directional signage to identify public parking. We feel that all town businesses should have employees park in the more remote areas or rear areas to free up parking for business customers. We thought it would be an appropriate idea to redesign the Main Street and Brewster Crossroad intersection to provide a raised medium island to tighten up the intersection. This is something the planning board's looked at in the past, and I think that could be helpful. And finally, we would recommend that the turn from Brewster Crossroad onto Route 6A be right turn only, and the turn from Cove Road onto Route 6A be right turn only. I've just been given my get it done in 1 minute sign, so I'm going to race through two more quickly here. Thank you, Bob. I think I'll end with trees and streetscapes. As part of the streetscape and the scope of it, we should address the need to replace the dying trees along Main Street. The town's Croissant cherry trees have a limited lifespan, and many need to be replaced. By replacing the dying trees and adding new ones, we can work with the tree warden and the property owners and come up with a streetscape that will definitely be an improvement over what we have. The Croissant cherry trees are beautiful for a very short period of time. But other than that, particularly in the winter, their shape doesn't do much for the town. I think that we could perhaps have a study group that could look into this and start moving forward with this. We don't need to wait until after the sewers are installed to dealing with putting trees in. The sewers are going to be going down the middle of the roads. I think the trees are something that we can deal with a short term and move forward quickly. I'm sorry it took up so much time. Thank you very much.
The Infrastructure Committee had one of the toughest assignments. They had such a long list and meaty subjects, so I appreciate it, David. And our last presentation tonight on the topic of marketing is Mike Donovan, and it's very appropriate because Mike has 30 years experience in advertising and marketing in New York and Connecticut. He also owns the Cape Cod Photo, Art, and Framing Shop. And like many of us, Mike began as a part-time resident as a child before coming here for the good life. Mike?
Thank you very much. I would like to, first of all, thank all of the committee members who worked along with me over the last few months putting together what you're going to hear this evening. I really would like to thank them for their time, their energy, and their enthusiasm. As I summarize the key elements for the plan we've developed, I'd like to set the stage by suggesting to all of you who live and work in our community that we are fortunate to have such a vibrant business community right here in Orleans. Nearly 190 businesses are located in Orleans, and we have developed a mantra that we believe speaks to this fact and summarizes it in a preliminary tagline of 4 simple words: it's all in Orleans. So with that as a backdrop, there are 4 major priorities that we've identified for developing an overall marketing plan, an action plan, if you will, that will get us to it's all in Orleans. First, conduct a resource assessment. Second, define a village center identity. Third, consider a village community magnet. And fourth, develop a marketing communications plan. So I'd like to go through each of those action steps. Priority number 1 is the resource assessment. First thing we need to do is to evaluate and assess the resources that the town center has to offer. This would be an inventory of all the cultural, environmental, and heritage assets of the community. This would include such things as museums, the arts, historical events and locations, the library, the concerts, the Firebirds, the rail trail, etc. Another resource we have is the access and integration of our village center. By this we mean access by bikes, access by foot, and access by car. First of all, with the bikes, the rail trail and other bikeways being developed and considered are very important for bringing people into the town center. We also need to make accommodations for those bikers by providing for the bike racks, which has already been mentioned, as well as biking services to help them out when they need repair. Access by walking is a key thing to promote the center as pedestrian friendly. A lot of the issues that have been raised tonight by the other committee members regards to safety and crosswalks, etc., will play into that. But we'd like to promote the fact that we have easy access to many shops and services over a very short distance if you're in the mood to walk. Accessing by car is a key thing. Obviously, most of us drive to and from places, but leveraging the convergence of the major roads and routes in the center of Orleans, the Route 6, Route 6A, and Route 28, all kind of converging in town center, and recognizing that, we would like to promote them for both the access and egress ways that they provide. Importantly, we need to provide the adequate and convenient parking that will encourage residents and visitors alike to shop, eat, and play here. Another resource of the town is the full range of products and services we have available here. We would like to encourage that buy a local concept. I think that's key. This could be reinforced with the idea that you don't have to go to Hyannis or go off Cape to get the things you need. It's all here in Orleans. Finally, we have a calendar of events in our town, and we need to coordinate and communicate them to our constituents. We already have several annual events to promote. We have the 4th of July parade, fireworks, the Pops in the Park, the Firebirds baseball team, the annual block party, the Christmas stroll, on and on. But we could have many more events. Some things perhaps such as the Blessing of the Fleet at Rock Harbor, which is planned for this June. Fall Arts Festival, perhaps. A restaurant week, a spring fling event. Townie Week, where you get special discounts if you live in the area. And maybe even coming up with something really big like Wellfleet has with Oyster Fest, and perhaps we'll call it the Orleans Quahog Fest. We also need to coordinate and communicate these great ideas through the chamber, through websites, through maps and informational kiosks. Our second priority is the village center identity. The most challenging step is to define and establish a positioning platform for the village center. We are many things. We're the hub of the Lower Cape. We're a small town with a rural feel. We're a town rich in maritime history. We have some of the finest beaches in the world. We provide year-round activities, and we have services open year-round and available to our citizens. We're a culinary and artistic hub, plus we have lots of recreational offerings to provide. The real challenge is how do we tie all these things together and market them as a brand that will differentiate our town from all the surrounding towns. Our third priority is the community magnet discussion. The need for a central attraction as a magnet has been addressed tonight. We concur and agree that a performing arts and cultural center is a great way to unify the town, enabling the town to host a variety of events and initiatives and an opportunity to use this magnet as the crossroads of our town. perhaps as the center of the wheel with spokes that reach out to the rest of the village center's offerings and beyond. Our fourth priority is the marketing communications plan. The final piece is the actual plan itself. We have to define the product, who are we, define the roles of each entity that's involved in implementing it, the town government, the Chamber of Commerce, the Merchants Association, and others. We have to define our target audiences, year-round residents, second homeowners, surrounding town residents, and visitors and vacationers. Longer term, we think it's also important to incorporate and involve the remaining town sub-entities, such as East Orleans, South Orleans, Rock Harbor, and Town Cove. The critical element of the plan is getting the information out. We believe that using technologies to wire our village is the most immediate and cost-effective way to keep the information flowing and keeping it up to date. We envision a comprehensive town website, a village website with links to all the businesses in town. Social networking links on Facebook and Twitter and other things like that would certainly go a long way to getting the information out as well. And these web-enabled information kiosks that have been mentioned earlier tonight, placed in key locations around the town center along with Google Maps would certainly go a long way to helping people who are not familiar with the area to find the things they're looking for. In addition to all these initiatives, we agree there is also a need for better signage that is strategically placed and uniform to direct visitors and residents alike to the various things we have to offer. Moving the town's information booth to a downtown location is suggested. It would be a great way to encourage people to experience the downtown area when they first arrive. And encouraging local merchants to be ambassadors or greeters for the town is a great way to create a user-friendly environment. And finally, using other media such as television and radio to help promote the various events and activities we have going on would be a great way to promote the town. After all is said and done, remember, it's all in Orleans. Thank you.
It's appropriate we had a marketing person who brought it all together and got us excited about it, because it seems like dry detail, but folks, it's our town, and these are great ideas that we've received. Do we have a question?
Would it be a good idea to organize this town improvement group as soon as possible to kick off and organize all of the important projects?
And one of the speakers who talked about the improvement group, that came from Ken?
Yes, I'll address that. I love to see the excitement. Absolutely. Long-range vision put this as a #1 priority because it is critical that the momentum continues, and the only way that's going to happen is to organize this Orleans Action Committee and to take the recommendations that these men and women have worked hard on with their committees, working with the planning board and creating that cooperative group between businesses, residents, Orleans residents, the not-for-profit organization, Orleans associations linked with town government. I think it's critical that it's created sooner than later because it's fresh on the minds. People are excited about it. I think it's something that is going to really start here tonight. Whether there's folks in this room that are interested or talking to a neighbor, a friend, or knowing someone that is interested in getting involved in the improvements of the town.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else want to comment on that? Our next question has to do with parking. I might direct this towards David, but others feel free to comment. And it says, shouldn't we focus on central parking as opposed to peripheral parking that would encourage central walking? Did you want to comment further on that, David?
Sure. I'm going to come up to the map if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
Our committee felt strongly about additional central parking, and the two areas that we see that this is possible in town is let me orient myself here. Okay, so behind this area in here, no, that's not it here. You would think a surveyor. No, it's true. That's the spirit. Here we are. Okay. There are a couple of parcels in town that we think are important to look at. I can't look at it from this side. I guess my brain is left-handed. So we've got Main Street. This is the Bessie property we referred to behind the Gotland Horse. It's a large vacant piece of property. The Bessies are not in the business of selling their property, but they are in the business of leasing their property. Perhaps the town could enter into a long-term lease. I mean, just for the space alone, there's 70 additional spaces that are right in downtown. So that was one of the things that our committee felt would be an appropriate place to keep an eye on for central parking.
Thank you. Any other comments on parking? Okay, I'll put this aside then. Next question concerns sewering in downtown in the village center. And there were three questions. One had to do with where will the sewers be, and the next had to do with the increased density in town. How does this play in? And the final one is that when we have sewering, is it an opportunity to bury utilities such as wires? Do I have a volunteer for that one?
The sewers will go down the middle of the street. The main sewers will basically go down the middle of the roads. It does give you an opportunity to increase the density, which I think can be looked on as a positive thing. These are all things that I think we need to address dealing with the planning board and the rules and regulations. And the other part of the question? Oh, the utilities. Our infrastructure committee put burying the overhead utility wires as our last action item. It's prohibitively expensive, and there's always the potential to lay extra pipe when you're perhaps digging a trench for a sewer, but I think we had a fairly grounded group, and we just don't see burying the utility wires as economically feasible. At least that was the take from my committee.
Nice to have, but
it'd be a wonderful thing to have.
the long reach.
I don't see it happening.
Well, I appreciate the candor. Any other comments on that, sewering? Next question, Todd, I'd like to direct this one to you. They've asked, did your group discuss formula businesses or franchises in the village center?
It's a great question, isn't it? Where have I heard that before? Yeah, this is something that's been floating around town for a while. You know, what is the role for formula-based businesses in the town of Orleans? And basically, a formula-based business is any business that has the same kind of model repeated. I think the definition is 9 times somewhere else. So we have a number of formula-based businesses and franchises in the town of Orleans already. They serve a purpose. The fact that we have them, I guess the question is, how many more do we need? How many more do we want? It's kind of a free enterprise question to some degree. And if the market dictates that other groups like that should look in here, that's great. Maybe one way we thought about addressing it is you could have a business node where all the franchises could be potentially in one area, making a different feel to the town of Orleans. Or the other way of addressing it could be with zoning and making the look, as they do in other towns or states, make them look a little bit different. So I think the broad brush that was attempted a couple of years ago to just permanently eliminate them, I think that kind of started the discussion. I think that would be a mistake. But maybe in some way, shape, or form, there could be some controls.
Did any of the other committees address this issue? And you want to comment on it? Okay, next question. And this question represents several, but it is, did the consultants give any estimates of the costs? And where do we think the money is going to come from for all these great ideas? And while my chairs are thinking about that, why don't I take a stab at it? First of all, I consider the next phase of this to be planning for implementation, and I think it is appropriate that we would put cost estimates on some of these projects, and that might help us in terms of our prioritization. And if we think the money's coming from taxes, I think we need to think otherwise. There are many sources for the money. But one overriding thought I want to leave you on this topic, and that is, have any of you been to the St. John's Divine? It's off the Columbia University campus in New York City. It is a beautiful cathedral. It is the largest cathedral in this hemisphere. It was designed over 100 years ago, and they began building it over 100 years ago, and it's almost complete. But if they hadn't had a plan, if they hadn't had a vision, if they hadn't begun, it would never have been built. Creating an attractive town is a lot easier than building the largest cathedral in this hemisphere. I think planning and reaching consensus on what we think is an attractive town is an important step. And we will take them one incremental step at a time. We will find the money or the volunteer time or the grants to get it accomplished, but we need to have a vision. And as I said before, if we don't, then the town will change, but it will change in an uncoordinated and maybe even unattractive fashion. Better that we have an influence over that. So that's my thought. Now I open it up to any chairs that would like to comment.
Just to say a few words about that. Our committee did address cost issues. In fact, every time we come up with an idea, what comes in the back of your mind is how we're going to pay for it. And as you see all the ideas that you saw here tonight, you see probably the potential of being a fairly high-cost project that we have in front of us here over, hopefully, well, probably a long period of time. But there are some things here that we should break down. We should break down into probably, you know, what's near term and can get done on a reasonable basis. And I think there's a lot here relative to even the streetscaping in the town, whether it be benches, whether it be some lighting, whether it be, you know, flower planters, whether it be fixing some sidewalks, trying to bring one end of town, you know, in line with the other end of town. I think these are the kinds of things that if we approach these things immediately, identify what they are, and start seeing a little bit of results from it, then I think it will be a positive approach to attacking some of the larger, more costly things that this town really needs. But there are some aesthetically designed things that we can do immediately that are very, very low cost. And I'm sure that, you know, working with businesses, working with the community, working with the town fathers, you know, these are kinds of things that we should do right away.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts on that? Andrew?
If we do form this public-private partnership that has the capacity as a nonprofit to go after grants and also has the input of branding and great design, something as utilitarian as a park bench, if we have a look to our benches in town, can be made like the Kennedy Rocker in terms of having an emblem of the town. So instead of taking home a t-shirt, take home a bench, you know? And then that becomes an income and marketing producer that then feeds the coffers for the low-hanging fruit that doesn't require as much expense. I mean, there are creative ways to get this done. And I think we just, as a town, need to put our heads together.
I'd like to follow up on your comment about the public-private partnership and an organization. Ken, you mentioned quickly forming an organization, and the question is, are there other towns that have successfully done this? Are there models that we can follow?
With the folks that I had on my committee, their education, their experience. They brought a lot of great ideas and other organizations and models that that we could follow. There's actually several. We did identify two that we really focused on and that we wanted to address. And I'm looking at right now. The group that we were looking at and that several members of our committee have looked at, and I personally spent a lot of time on one of these. One entity would be the Cape Cod Cultural Center in South Yarmouth. The other model, which you all might be more familiar with, is the Hyannis Main Street Business Improvement District. I don't know how many folks are aware of this group, but if you go on their website, it's quite powerful. It is a movement of businesses and residents and other organizations that saw the benefit of developing and improving the Hyannis Main Street District. I started reading this website and I couldn't get away from it. I think there's something to be said about passion and motivation. And if there's enough people, and I believe the town of Orleans has it in them, that if they see a great benefit with a long-range perspective, it can happen. So if we do look at these models and we study them and adapt them to our town, you don't have to recreate it. It's there.
Thank you. The next question, I think it's either Ken or Mike might want to kick off on this one, and it has to do with Snow's Library. And the question is, the questioner said that they were surprised that no comments were made by the committee about the importance of Snow's Library in the planning of the village center, particularly since so many people pass through its doors. It does have public parking and it has public facilities. How does that tie in? The question is, how does it tie into our plans? Do you want to comment on that?
Well,
I think that, Snow's clearly is a fixture in town and an important one, and it does host a variety of different events and things that are of interest to our constituents. So I think what we were thinking was it needs to be more than a library, and while Snow's Library does attempt to do exhibits of artwork and photography and a variety of other things, there's a broader performing arts kind of thing that we were thinking about that the library could even dovetail into. So it was not to leave Snow's Library out, but to rather expand on the good things they're doing by having a larger entity, perhaps a performing arts building of some kind.
Any other comments on the role of Snow's Library? Okay. I have to say that I know the topic has come up in meetings that I've sat in, whether it has risen to a high priority or not. It is part of the village center, and it's a very important part of the village center. Here's a question, two questions that are very similar. It says the key intersection of 6A and Main, we have the mobile station, the CVS. And in both cases, they don't even fill their window boxes. What can you do? And the related question said, do we really need so many redundant services such as gas stations, particularly since they don't exactly fit the definition of aesthetic? So since we've used the word aesthetic, Jim, would you like to give me thoughts on this?
Well, we didn't discuss particular businesses in town, whether they fit the mode of where we would like to go to. I think what we try to do is we just try to put together an overall plan and then start to work on the issues at hand. But as far as those two businesses are concerned, yes, it is a situation in town where you've got two businesses that are are performing under what their guidelines are. The town or even the village area having very little to say about what you can do and what you can't do. And I guess as we move into this project, not having an answer right away to that question, I think it's something that needs to be identified in future as businesses turn over or as bylaws get developed. that these kinds of issues with these businesses, and again, they serve a good need. There is a need for a good mixture of the CVSs of the world or the Mobiles of the world, along with what we want to do in the village center. Not necessarily those businesses, but similar type businesses that have multiple locations. But as you put your bylaws together, or the bylaws are put together, I think they've got to kind of look at what the future plan is for the town and incorporate into these bylaws what businesses need to do. Some are going to be happy about it, and others aren't going to be too happy about it. But I know that if you're going to develop a long-range plan and you want to try to make things similar within the town so that signage is good, window appearance is good, and other things that we talked about tonight, then you've got to incorporate it in the town bylaws. And that's it's like I can't see any other way of doing it. If we continue to do it the way that we do it, then you're going to have this mishmash of businesses throughout the town.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? Todd, I'm going to direct this to you, but Mike, you might want to comment also. When our consultant presented her report, she said that one of the successful signs of a town is that if you have just one dress shop, you have one dress shop. But if you have a choice of 3 or 4 along the same street, now you've got something. People are attracted to that. And even more important are restaurants. If you have a variety of restaurants, and so that people, if one is filled, there's overflow, they have an opportunity to go to another, and they don't have to have hamburgers every night. They have an opportunity for this type of food and that. So business nodes, I think they refer to. This is the question. Do we foresee additional restaurants in the future? And how do we attract more quality restaurants in Orleans?
You want me to answer that?
Well,
The premise that I'm sitting next to a great restaurant owner right here. Well, here's the way I feel about it. Whenever I go on vacation, the first thing I do is I try and look at the streetscape, and if I see places where people are sitting outside at a cafe enjoying themselves, you know what? That's probably where I want to be. So, you can look at cars as well as looking at the ocean going back and forth, but the reality is if you get people comfortable, and that's either with a variety of stores, shops, restaurants, establishments, whatever, but we could probably, I think there's a way in our future vision to make it so everybody can all benefit and be enhanced in their business relationships. So, I hope that answers the question. What did I forget?
You forgot your suggestion about the best business to come to the downtown area. What would it be? What were we missing?
Oh, yeah. My idea was to get a brewery in the middle of downtown. You'd all be happy, but we can work on that.
sure can.
I'll follow up with this. I'm going to agree with Todd. I think good competition is good for any town. As a restaurant owner, there's nothing glamorous about being the only restaurant in town. There's a lot of work involved in trying to create a destination for your single restaurant. I think that the more the restaurants, the more competition in other businesses and services just breeds success. It does. The town becomes a destination, not your individual business. We felt a little of that down in Eastham. I mean, we had people in uproar with Dunkin' Donuts coming into Eastham across the street from the Hole-in-One donut shop. It was in our best interest to just lay low and let it develop. But I got to be honest with you, the moment they moved in town, our business actually went up. So I'm all for it. Am I crazy about franchises? No, I'm not. I'm a true believer in mom and pop. I think there's a certain flavor, service, value of service, interest in the people that live in the community. I think that's what mom and pop shops offer. But if there's more people out there that really want to get involved and have a business in town, I think the town's going to have to look at their bylaws and allow certain size cafes in the village center. It may not be indoor seating at the capacity of 40, but maybe you could have a seating of 30 or 20 and have outdoor cafes and outdoor seating, because people love to watch people. We all people watch, and I think that's what people want to do. It's one of my favorite pastimes. I can watch the water as long, probably for 10, 15 minutes. That's just who I am. But I'm about the activity of the town and being vibrant. So that's my comment on that.
Henry? Yes.
Actually, a lot of us may not realize it, but Orleans has 13 hair salons. So the way Wellfleet became the gallery town, I think we do, we're going to get growth by default if we don't get ahead of the curve. So we can decide to be the restaurant row of the Outer Cape, or we can decide to set up a gallery kind of square that I think is happening, where Todd has just opened his new gallery. We can get ahead of the curve, as we said tonight, and decide who we want to become.
I think we're ahead of the curve on gas stations.
Well, even that, we talked about that because very few of us want to greet people by having a gas station at one of your gateways to town. And so the question is, can we be proactive in not only our zoning and our bylaws, but actively recruit the type of businesses for the community we want to become? And I think that's a fair question.
Next question for David. You made reference to biking and bike trails as a high priority item. This question asked if you could elaborate on where the bike trails would go. How can we connect to water resources, even Town Cove? And sort of multi-pronged question. When people are in town, because of the parallel parking along Main Street, where would bikers walk their bike, or would they be able to ride their bikes in town?
Our committee didn't really delve into it in that depth. What I can say is I know there are other committees there's a coast-to-coast committee that's working on trying to establish a bike path from Rock Harbor to Nauset Beach. I think it's an important part of infrastructure to make it safer. It wasn't really part of our charge to look into that, but what I can say is that one thing that it was a high priority was providing bike racks throughout the town. But I'm not really in a position to answer what could be done in the village center to improve the biking. We have a limited amount of aisle space for vehicles as it is, and perhaps just slowing the traffic down a little bit and making the crosswalks better and doing small things can help the biking situation, but that's really all I can offer at this point.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think it's important that the people know that the biking has been built into our planning, and it's an important piece, and yet to be determined. Ken, a question for you. There has been discussion in the past about a trolley from Nauset Beach to Skakit Beach. Is this on the drawing board? The person who wrote the question said, if you do decide to have one, I think an excellent name would be From Sea to Shining Sea. That's marketing.
I would just say that would be an excellent suggestion for marketing. Yes, there was some crazy ideas thrown around, which when you're talking about long-term vision, you have to remember that you're looking 15, 20 years out. There's new technology falling on our laps every day. I think the trolley is the concept. Actually, it's physical system or vehicle, but I think the idea is that there will be a need to connect the large parking lots that are scattered on the outside of the village center. I think a trolley needs, you have an existing parking lot, they're not going to go away unless you just rip them all up and relocate everybody. It's just not going to happen. So I think by having the parking lots, you can have an area where it's protected, it's good for public safety, proper lighting, folks can park, congregate, be picked up, and be able to move from one node to the next. Whether it's going to be the physical mechanism or trolley device that's going to do that, I don't know. But there will be solutions. We also threw out the idea of a pedicab, which I think is wonderful. I think it will be different. I think it will be interesting. We actually threw out the idea of a movable, one of those walkways that move at airports, where you just stand and it just takes you along the way. So there has been a lot of talk about it, but like I said, I think you really need to look at the parking lot situation and how you're going to get people safely around town, and I think that should be something considered.
Thanks, Mike. The next question, I thought this is intriguing. There was once a movie theater in Orleans, and there is a movie theater in Harwich, which will become once there was a movie theater in Harwich. And the surveys that were conducted last year seemed unanimous that people really like the idea of some sort of attraction in Orleans. They would like some sort of cultural, including film. And in a moment, I'm going to ask Mike to elaborate on the cultural center that he was referring to, but this is an opportunity for me to relate a conversation I had about this. In the Rocky Mountains, one of the resorts in the summertime, in order to attract people, actually set aside a park in the center of town, and they would show old movies outside. Telluride, that's where it was. And then the conversation said, well, wait a minute, we could do that on the town square or on the window to the park, and there's parking, and so all we'd have to do is find some private donors who want to bring that film in. So there are opportunities other than having an elaborate movie theater that shows films every night of the year. There are other ways to attract people through cultural events, including film. And Ken, did you want to comment on that?
Okay, no, that's fine. The Long Range Vision Committee did talk about, as our magnet to the center of town, we are very strongly supporting the visionary the Center for Visual and Performing Arts. We did talk about having a number of activities going on there, and yes, the cinema was something that we would like to incorporate into that center. I do support the idea of an outdoor theater that's not like a drive-in, but something where folks can come and congregate, get themselves comfortable. It's amazing how many people come out to watch a baseball game and pop their chairs and put their blankets down, and they have their food and their beverage, and what a sight that is. Why they couldn't be doing that and watching a movie, it's beyond me. I think that you have a setting right there at a baseball field. I mean, how open can you really get than what you have already? I think that we talked about having this group, having a group that could integrate businesses and activities and events and educating the visitors and residents. I think that this is something that could be a short-term fix. I mean, we have the Pops in the Park, and where are they located? Right there in the field. I think you have something very valuable in that space. But I think that the center could do more of a small setting where there could be small performances, and more of an intimate setting. Where folks feel close and are in a community setting instead of something large and glamorous and 3 stories high. So,
David, you wanted to comment?
We had quite a number of action items. I didn't get to discuss a few of them, one of which was encourage the use of the village center public spaces for cultural events. And our committee did feel strongly about movies, for instance, not a new movie theater. We tended to be somewhat of a grounded committee, and we were thinking more along the lines of perhaps outdoor movies in the village green next to the Snow Library. I mean, we have a wonderful village green there that you could, we have Snow Library right next door. You have the opportunity there to have an outdoor event like you mentioned in Telluride. And it's little things like that. We don't have to talk about getting a movie theater in town. Just in the summertime, weekly or bi-weekly, we have the beach concerts. We could have little town movies that I'm sure could be attended by, should and would be attended by a lot of people.
Thank you.
I just want to comment too, because we did discuss it, and I don't know if there's any truth to this, but there was a mention in our group about the Sovereign Bank facility on Main Street, perhaps vacating at some point, and that would be an ideal building because it has plenty of parking, to perhaps relocate the Playhouse that's over on heading out towards Nauset, make that kind of the central part, and perhaps adding on to that building for a movie theater or something like that. But it also is a hall to hold other cultural and arts events. So that was kind of a pie in the sky idea for us, but I thought it's a really great vision.
So I think the answer is that all of the groups think this is a very good idea, and we are still trying to formulate solutions, but having some sort of film in the town is attractive. Andrew?
Just to refresh the audience that our task was to rate priorities, and we had to check our discussions so many times because we started problem solving rather than ranking the priorities. So it's really an invitation to alert you about where we are with our thinking and invite participation for this possible solutions. I mean, we were supposed to just say, this is important. We haven't a clue how we're going to do it.
It's a process. And as far as the collection of ideas and brainstorming, the door is not closed. We're still very open to the input from citizens. And these 6 committees, it's likely that they'll be reformulated. It won't necessarily be the same titles. There may be 2 or 3 committees as we go forward, but we are certainly looking for participation from anyone who's interested in the community to do that. And this is perhaps an idea as opposed to a question, but Mike, I should give some thought to this. We have people coming in from other towns, such as Eastham and Wellfleet, that come to the Stop and Shop parking area, and then you have from Brewster and Harwich that may go to Shaw's. Have we given thought to how we can attract those people to continue staying in Orleans and go to the village center? Is there some way that they don't discontinue their shopping, they come in, get what they need, and get out again without ever seeing the village center?
Well, I think that the list of events that we were talking about and adding to that, one of the things we talked about in the marketing group was perhaps to keep it simple, maybe it's a monthly thing, that there's something big going on every month, and then try and build on that as time goes on, and we have, we rack up a success with something, and if it can repeat year to year, that would be ideal. But we have some anchor events that we have that hopefully draw people into the town. If they're not working, perhaps we should look at other ideas and or expand on them. But we thought that there was an opportunity to do something year round and to make the town more exciting, have something going on all the time. Kind of, that will get them from the supermarket into town, hopefully.
And something as simple as providing kiosks in these places. Just a good informational kiosk at Stop and Shop, at Shaw's, that can draw people's attention. If it's done properly, it's a cheap thing, it's an easy, inexpensive thing to do. We don't have to spend a lot of money to do these things.
A question to all of the chairs that give some thought to this. Have we given thought to the need for sustainable and reusable materials? In other words, the greening concept. in these plans. Could not Orleans be a leader in any materials that they purchase or use, giving thought to the sustainability and the reusability? Who would like to go first on that? We'll go with Todd first and then Andrew.
I mean, that is a great question. I think because of where we are on the map and our location, we have a natural advantage to really be able to build business growth, development in the town of Orleans through green efforts. I know there's, the town of Orleans actually is part of a green program. They're under a grant where they have to, and I might butcher this, but they have to convert over to a certain amount of green resources within the next 3 to 4 years. But you know, personally, what we started at the Orleans Marketplace with our solar panels, I'd like to see those translate back into all the street lights all the way in town. We now have trash cans in town that use solar power to you know, crush the material and then be able to send a little signal over to the trash group when they need to be picked up. So there's an awful lot of technology out there that we could use to basically enhance the environment here and be leaders in this. I really think Orleans can be a leader here.
Andrew?
I wanted to just add to that it came up in aesthetics, because there was these, in the aesthetics discussion, the desire to make sure that we preserve our historical feeling, at the same time to represent Orleans as a leader in sustainability. So even when it comes down to something like picking what a light fixture looks like, or looking at what you make a bench out of, it becomes a critical point of discussion about how you're going to represent the town. And I, for one, having joined with my husband in a construction project where we were trying to be up to LEED certified, but were challenged with budget constraints, there's a lot to learn about the choices, and it's an incredible process. And I think this is something else that, if we can address both preserving our past and being sure that we leave something really good for the generations to come, like planting our trees. In our choice of treescape, making sure we don't stick with one population of tree that could be decimated by a natural predator, we can make really intelligent choices all through how we look at the future. And I think it's incredibly important.
Thank you. This is going to be our last question, but it's appropriate because it's an opportunity for each of our chairs to summarize. And the question has to do with, if you had to choose just one action item that could be accomplished in the next 12 to 18 months, what would that be? And I'm going to go first to give them time to think about this, because I sat on one of the committees. It was as simple as this. It would be desirable if more of the businesses had windows that allowed the pedestrians to look in and see the merchandise inside the shop, to be attracted in, as opposed to windows that have ads or furniture against. We actually have bylaws in Orleans about that, but there's so many other things to enforce that those aren't really enforced stringently, understandably. However, how difficult would it be for the business owners in the village center to agree, sort of a peer arrangement, that we will reduce the number of ads that we put on our windows, of the furniture that covers the windows, so that we increase it. It's something that could be implemented just like that if there was general agreement. A simple example. It doesn't cost anything. It has to do with pride in your town. That, you know, once these things start going, everyone gets caught up in it, and the business owners as well as the people in the street. And those are the type of improvements that can be implemented right away. First volunteer, Jim.
The one action item I would recommend, and it didn't have anything to do with aesthetics. It's being in business in town for 13 years and seeing what the town has tried to do over the 13 years to try to get it to come together. That, you know, it's said that Orleans should be a walking town. Well, when you have all the intersections that you have, and you get three main roads that are converging into one area, there's a little danger there, but there's a possibility that the one action item that would help tremendously is parking, and going after the areas of the land available to try to do something to get more people to come downtown. I don't think any gimmick, any merchandising skill or whatever, it would be more, it would fit the bill other than having a place for them to park. And you know, as we talked about the bigger chains being on the outskirts, well, that was their devised plan. As towns grew smaller, were less frequented, and populations grew within towns, they chose areas that weren't congested and, you know, that were high traffic, and put these, you know, superstores, whatever, in locations where the traffic gets hit before the customer gets downtown. Well, we have a reverse situation now in the town of Orleans. We're trying to get people to come downtown. They need a place to park. And then you can open up your walkways, you can open up the streetscaping, you can make it very, very nice. But it all has to start with the parking and the availability to get people in and get them out. And let them stay, let them wander around town, let them visit all the nice shops. I had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to be in Newport, Rhode Island. And Newport, Rhode Island is, you know, as you know, is a historic district, maritime, you know, emphasis, same kind of village concept where they have hotels and they got supermarkets and they got you know, the sea, and they got sailboats in the harbor, and they've done a beautiful job in putting it all together. And to get people to shop in their downtown area, they've got benches and they've got lights and they've got, you know, awnings. Awnings are a big draw to get people to come in and be comfortable, and it kind of just brings them in. And, you know, we were sitting on a bench, you know, a nice bench, and there was a bench probably every 25, 30 feet with a nice receptacle, trash receptacle, nice lighting. And, you know, as I was sitting there, I saw people actually picking up papers because they looked out of place. You know, it gave a very good comfort. And the parking is very accessible. You can park in behind a lot of the buildings. You can park on some of the side streets. But it's all a matter of getting them in. If they didn't have this access, they wouldn't be there. You know, they'd be on the outskirts. You know, and I think that's what we have in Orleans. We have a lot of people coming in downtown trying to find a place to park to do their business. Yes, they can you know, park at Friends and do their, you know, park in the post office square or whatever and do their thing, but it's really, you know, there's a lot more in downtown. That the downtown businesses only have 3, 4, 5 parking spaces available for their customers to be there. So that, you know, I know it's a long answer, but for a very, I mean, short solution, a very simple solution, but parking is the key downtown to get people to come back in.
Thanks, Jim. Since we started at that end of it, why don't we move to Todd next?
That's a great suggestion by Jim. I mean, that would be a really easy one to, I think, cross off the list. I do think having this committee, Economic Development Committee, whatever you want to do, I think back in today's time feels very much like 91, 92, 93, 94 with the economic uncertainty. At that time, the town did form an Economic Development Council, which I happen to be a member of, and it was a very productive group. I have to tell you, we talked to a lot of business people. We did have a town representative there, and there were some good decisions that were made. I can remember one of the decisions, the town was getting ready to widen Rock Harbor. The bike path came in from Brewster, stopped Main Street. They were going to widen Rock Harbor to take the bike route down Rock Harbor, and so we pushed hard and said, just finish the bike trail. You know, just, there it is, just go. And they actually, you know, they had to get money for the infrastructure, for the overpass, the highway, but the solution was there, it just needed a push. So if you were asking me, I think a short-term solution that would help get all this stuff organized would be having that business development committee.
Thank you, Todd. Ken?
I agree with Todd. Obviously, A lot of great ideas have been presented tonight. Wonderful thought, a lot of effort and time. I would hate to see all this go to waste. And the way that would happen is not to form an entity that would continue to carry forward the powerful ideas generated by the Orleans Village Center Initiative. Long-range vision is exactly what it is. It's a vision. But we have to think about tomorrow, and that's the organization that will have to take these ideas and start addressing and look where we can start addressing the short-term needs and start showing accomplishments. As small as that accomplishment may be, it is a success. And as you gather your successes, the confidence of the people will be behind you, because they will see that these small changes are affecting and making change to their town and their community. So if there's one thing that my group would like to see, is to have this Orleans Action Committee or Business Economic Development, is to be creative and start to talk about it and start to get the planning board on board with the ideas and to address the bylaws that are needed for these changes to occur. It is controlled, and that is what we're trying to do, is control the change.
Thank you, Ken. Andrew?
The same. Messenger. Same thing. Out of this committee would be to form the public-private mix that would carry and actually support and extend the reach of our town government. So, yeah, that would be.
Andrea was also on my committee.
Thank you, David.
I'm going to segue onto that as well, but I think I'm going to segue on in saying that probably one of the more important things that we're going to need is the support of our Board of Selectmen with these committees and with the townspeople and with the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, we haven't always had that support, and we're going to need that support moving forward.
I think as a business owner that would like to see more foot traffic downtown and make it more pedestrian friendly or bike friendly or whatever, however you want to get into town. The question earlier about how do we get people to come from the supermarkets at either end of the town to come visit the center of town. And I think giving people a list of reasons why, whether it's events or special things that are happening, and doing it consistently and involving the merchants so that everybody's on the same page, and then further communicating all that through some kind of a unified website so people can click on and find out exactly what's going on this week, next month, and that it's thought through and disciplined, that we have something unique and happening all the time, and I think that's really a great way to attract people to the downtown. Obviously, you need a place to park, so that I agree with that too.
Well, that concludes our presentation and responses, but I want you to know there's a stack of good ideas and questions that overlap with these, and we will take these quite seriously and try to infuse them into our process. So thank you for coming tonight, and hopefully it was informative and you're enthusiastic and supportive of what we're trying to do.